Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is your host, Irlianna Samsara, session 160. And I'm so excited because we have Sharon Knight from the UK with us. Hello, Sharon.
Hello, everybody. It's good to be here.
Now, to honor the fact that we have the UK astrologers in the house, so unfortunately, I did not have any nice English bone teacups to have tea with Sharon, but I did have this nice bone china plate, and it's like violets, I guess, or forget-me-nots or something. So, and then of course we have to, with royal fanfare, this is my royal trumpet, which looks surprisingly like a paper towel roll, but let us give you a da, 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 da. Here comes Sharon Knight. Okay. As you can tell, the Leo is in the house. All right, enough of that.
Snapping at the heels of the Aries.
Yeah, right. Oh boy. So so let me give you guys give Sharon a proper introduction. So let me just pull that up. Okay. Who is Sharon? Sharon has worked as a qualified professional astrologer for 30 years. She began her studies with the world-renowned Faculty of Astrological Studies up to diploma level before qualifying as a qualified QHP, Qualified Horary Professional, with Olivia Barclay. She gained her MA in Cultural Astronomy and Astrology in 2004. She's a fellow of the Association of Professional Astrologers International and has been a chair of the association for over a decade. Sharon's got her own course teaching traditional professional astrology and is also a tutor and convenor for the QHP course in Horary Astrology. In 2016, Sharon won the coveted Astrologer of the Year award in India. She's one of the few astrologers worldwide to have correctly predicted Donald Trump's victory in 2016, although she did get it wrong in 2020. Us astrologers, we can't always get everything right. We do our best, as well as Brexit. She got that right. And David Cameron becoming prime minister as well, and other mundane predictions. So in the past, she's taught astrology at adult education classes and has spoken at various conferences in the UK and overseas. She's written columns for various women's magazines, newspapers, and astrological journals. And for 10 years has had a regular slot on the radio discussing astrology and world events. And our website is www.astrologersharon.co.uk. So, yay. Oh,
That's quite a lot.
Yeah. Yes, you certainly a woman of accomplishment. So, before we begin with our chat, we're going to talk today, everybody, about, of course, we're in the eclipse season. We're right in the shadow of the solar eclipse in Taurus. And so we're going to get Sharon's take on that, and especially too with the royal family, because this eclipse is showing up very, very, very strongly in Queen Elizabeth's, Prince Charles, and such, and especially. And so, they've certainly been in the news so much. And so what that might look like for the UK, and, and when the mundane and the collective of what we can learn from this eclipse. And then we might, spin off into some other, maybe perhaps, what we see for what you're feeling for the rest of the year. So, yeah, so having said that, there was something else I was going to say, but I can't remember. Anyway, it'll come back. Oh, I know. I always ask people, how is it that you found astrology, or how did astrology find you?
Well, it's like everybody, I think. First of all, I came in through sun sign astrology. So although so many astrologers discredit sun sign astrology, it was Linda Goodman's book. When I was about 16, it was either a birthday or Christmas present. And I devoured that book. And well, not quite a decade, but for many years, I thought that was what astrology was. And it was great because when I went to parties, I could look at someone and say, oh, you're a Pisces, you're a Sag. And they go, wow, how do you do that? And I think in 82 or 83, I moved to the States. I lived in Texas and sort of commuted between Texas and LA. And I don't think I paid for a meal or a drink during that time, because I'd say to people, well, you know, obviously you're a Pisces, the way you walk. And they go, hey, have a drink, tell me more.
Oh,
So
I love it. How to travel for free.
Yeah, just using sun sign astrology. And it was when I came back from the States, basically, somebody did my chart. And I thought, wow, there's more to this than I realized. And fortunately, I was then able to I was living in London at the time, and we had what were known as adult education evening classes, and they cost, you know, it wasn't expensive. And so I would go Monday to the Astrological Lodge, which is still going.
Right.
I think it was a Tuesday to a class in Fulham, Wednesday to another class, and Thursday to another class. So that's,
wow.
Once astrology got me, it got me.
Every day of the week was like, wow.
Yes.
And your friends, were they like, oh my God, Sharon, you know?
Friends? What friends? I didn't have any friends. I was too busy studying astrology.
Wow, that really, yeah. And how long did that go on for? Like years? And it
Oh,
just kept
years.
rolling and
Oh,
rolling.
years. I mean, I still get, well, I speak at the lodge.
Right.
So yeah, still connected with the lodge after 30 something years.
And here, I just want to show everybody, here's the, there's your book that started it all.
Yeah.
I remember this. It says on the top, worldwide bestseller, 250,000 copies sold. And this definitely shows you the age of this book, sold at $7.50. You can't even get a used book for that. Complete and unabridged. How to really know, you know, of course, it had to be popularly attuned. How to know your husband, wife, lover, child, boss, employee, yourself through astrology. And that still holds, of course. And yeah, so anyway, just wanted to share that with people. And, you know, there's so many young people and new millennials and Gen Z, you know, that are into astrology. And it's cool to show where the popular roots of that, you know, a generation ago, and yeah, how we've evolved. So you are a traditional astrologer. So for those people who are new to the channel, maybe you could share, you know, what is traditional astrology as opposed to modern astrology?
Well, traditional astrology just focuses on the 7 naked eye planets, the planets that were used literally by the ancients, by the Sumerians, the Babylonians, the Egyptians. Everything stopped at Saturn. Saturn was the gatekeeper between the known and the unknown, and sort of the dangerous out there world. But the thing is, when I started studying astrology, there wasn't traditional astrology. It was all modern psychological astrology. And one of the big influences was Howard Susportus. You know, he was very big with his book, Rob Hand with his whatever it was he wrote then. It was only in the 90s, in the early 90s, that the focus came from America on traditional astrology. However, having said that, when I was at one of these wonderful evening classes, one of my tutors, and in fact my main mentor, was Mike Edwards. He sadly passed on. And he was a classicist, and he read Bonatti in the Latin.
Bonatti,
so his teachings were mostly predicated on Bonatti's work. And then, of course, Olivia with William Lilly, who was 17th century, mid 1600s.
Right.
And what happened?
It's
Christian astrology, and it's still an incredible book. But what happened here in England with the faculty coming out of the office, can't say it, my teeth won't work. Theosophical. Thank you. Theosophical Society.
Right.
It was quite different to the tradition. And I studied with the faculty, as I say, up to diploma. And then on one of my papers, I made the mistake of using Benati stroke Lily viewpoint. And my paper came back with a big red cross through it. And I thought, this is where I stop the modern and go strictly traditional. So I was fortunate because I was taught personally by Olivia, and then I became one of her tutors. And then, of course, Olivia said, you've got to support this new thing that's coming out of America, Project Hindsight, or RHAT. And that was the three Rob Hand, Rob Zoller, and Rob Schmidt. And thank you, Olivia, because I've got all these little books and I would read them. I didn't understand them and I had nobody I could discuss them with, but I still tried. And eventually, when I met Rob Zoller in person, when he came to the UK, and I studied with him, I think it was 94, 95, I then dropped the outer planets, even though Rob still taught the outer planets. And it was with the wonderful Ben Dykes in probably 2005, 2006. He came to England and I was chatting to him. And he said, you've got to go cold turkey, go whole house signs.
Right.
So for those who don't know the difference, we have the quadrant-based system with which most people are familiar, which is Placidus Regimontanus. But the whole house sign is similar to equal houses. So the sign where the ascendant falls, that in its entirety becomes the first house. And so you go by the signs, as it says. Yeah, so that was it. And I found things worked.
I find things work a lot better. There's such a clarity and a precision. I know my Hellenistic astrology teacher, Achita Bhavadas, he says there's an elegance to it. And he said it's also stunningly accurate. And that's the only words. I was already feeling drawn to it, after 20 years of modern astrology. And then when he said, the elegance and it's like the sacred geometry of the planets. You really see it from its fullness. So yeah, I'm on board there, man. It just changed my life, it really did. But anyway, so moving on to the eclipses. Yeah, here we are. It's Friday. No, it's not. Is it? No, it's Thursday. It's Thursday, and we're two days away from the solar eclipse, our first solar eclipse in Taurus. And I just wanted to get your take on what you think. This one has really intrigued me, and I can even pull up the chart for the solar eclipse. Actually, we could.
Yeah, put the chart out.
Yeah, and we can look at that. Let's see. Let me just give me a moment here. Just a second. I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and here we've got the charts for Queen Elizabeth, which would be this chart for all those watching. Let me get this a little bit bigger. And then the outer ring is the eclipse that is happening on Saturday at British time. It would be 9:28 p.m. So Saturday evening in Britain, and about late afternoon in the East Coast of the US. So what is the thing that is really calling you most about this eclipse? What does this suggest to you, Sharon? Like, say, for the Queen's chart.
Yeah, this starts the trigger, but the 16th of May eclipse is the one which really hits home. And of course, the first thing that one notices when the chart's set for London is that the ascendant is very close to her Saturn MC point. So that's top of the heap, as it were. And
which is right here. Yeah, the ascendant is 23 Scorpio, and her Saturn is 24. So, and that's for London, England. Yeah, and the South Node.
Yeah. And her MC is 25 Scorpio. So it's a highly visible eclipse. And I think 1992, 1993 was her annus horribilis, when this eclipse family was sort of in circulation then. And that's, of course, when there was the fire at Windsor Castle. It hit her home point, the IC point. And
that when Lady Di and Prince Charles
and Prince Charles and Princess Anne, all three children announced their separation that year. Now,
again, so we're kind of in the Saturn return of that year. Yeah, interesting. That's major change. And that's the South Node being the falling away, the decrease, the falling away of Scorpio, you know, power and the way it's been, and that whole rigid, the structure of it. We've been seeing this, of course, for a long time, but the fact that it's hitting home, Saturn, you think about the monarchy and
Well, she's 96 now, and so she's in what's known as a first house profection. That's a traditional Time Lord technique. So
and the first house rules the physical body, you know.
Yes.
So yeah,
it's quite telling. I mean, I could rattle on for hours about the Queen and the royal family and the eclipses and the Zodiacal Releasing, which affects all her children and her grandchildren. I mean, it really does show. So I've speculated on my blog thing that we could actually see a change in Prince Charles's status. Now, you know, it's pretty darned obvious. She is 96. So common sense has to play a part in everything we say. But the telling thing was the fact that at Easter, she couldn't make in person any of the services. And we know she's a devout Christian. Excuse me, I'm just going to cough. And also she is so supremely conscious of being visible to the people of the country. So
when the figurehead starts not showing up in public, it's time.
Yeah. So I wondered if there would be moves afoot to make Prince Charles Prince Regent, as happened with Prince George in was it 18 something? I actually have got the charts. Yes, 1811, when the title of Prince Regent was first conferred. And it's interesting how this eclipse picks up that chart for the 5th of February, 1811. Very interesting.
Oh, this eclipse picks up, that has resonance with the chart where I didn't know that. Is that the same Saros eclipse family?
I haven't looked to see which family it was in.
Yeah, I haven't gotten my Bernadette Brady Eagle and the Lark out yet.
Yeah, no, I haven't. It was just as we do as astrologers, you get something in your head, and there's got to be a change. I mean, we know there's going to be a change in the next 5 years. If we go on the length of life of her mother, she was, I think, 102 when the Queen Mother passed away. And one of the things, I don't know if it's Ptolemy or Abu Mashar, instructs us for length of life, you've got these various techniques, but you have to look at the genetics. You have to look at the family, the background to the people, how, if they're in a good, comfortable, warm place with plenty of food. And that goes back to Hippocrates on airs, waters and places. He says the same thing. If you want to understand how well somebody will live, then you must look at their parental background and the waters they drink, the air they imbibe, and the food that they consume through their life. So so sort of I've slightly gone off tangent, as it were.
That's fascinating, though.
But it is, there is longevity. We know Prince Philip, 99, and his mother, Princess Alice, And
Yes.
the Queen's aunts, they lived to the
Very long.
century. So
Yeah.
it's quite likely Her Majesty can be with us, please God, for a good few more years yet. But if she is now going to be out of sight, as happened with the Prince Regent, who I think became George IV, then Prince Charles has to take over.
He's got to step in at some point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody lives forever, and things have to. Yeah. The fact that. Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So that's what set me off on the tangent of looking back to see when the position of Prince Regent was created and conferred, and it was the Sun in Aquarius at 27 degrees. Jupiter also, we forget Jupiter, Jove is king of the Greek gods.
Right.
And he is at 23 Taurus, opposite Prince Charles's sun. And this eclipse, 23 or 4 Taurus, the 16th of May eclipse.
23, 24, Scorpio.
Yeah,
Lunar.
Taurus, Scorpio.
The Taurus Scorpio axis activates that.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a matter of, just a matter of time.
It gets even better than that, because in the Prince Regent chart, Mars is on 22 Scorpio. So we've got Jupiter and Mars opposite each other in the Prince Regent chart, conferring of the title. And we've got this eclipse picking it up. Now, I know, we've had similar eclipses before. And really what I should have done perhaps is looked at when Charles was invested as the Prince of Wales, his investiture date, because I'm sure that will pick up
it has
on that theme.
Sure, yeah. The cycles that, I think that's one of the most fascinating things about astrology that the general public is just now waking up to, is that, like you were saying earlier, Sharon, it's way beyond the sun sign. That's the sun sign is what some people call it's the gateway drug, sun sign horoscopes. When you want more and you go down the rabbit hole and you see these cycles of time that go over and further and further out, like the sorrow cycles. My goodness, when I first started reading Bernadette Brady's book, The Eagle and the Lark, I was blown open that I didn't know that eclipses were in cycles, sorrow cycles, and it's like rings of a tree, and there's this, and they all have this unique energy signature. And so it's just, you know what, I'm going to go grab my book. I'm just be right back. I want to see what sorrow cycle, I can't believe I haven't looked at that yet.
No, me neither. Okay, you get your book and I'll pour out some more tea.
Okay, be right back. Okay, everyone, I've got my book. By the way, if you're interested in eclipses, I cannot recommend this book more highly. It is called Predictive Astrology, The Eagle and the Lark. Bernadette Brady is a very highly esteemed astrologer, and she wrote Brady's Book of Fixed Stars. She's a legend like Sharon, and
well, I'm hardly a legend, but she is a goddess of astrology.
She is a goddess of astrology. Well, you are too, Sharon. So
yeah, not on her level.
So predictive astrology, the Eagle and the Lark, and what it talks about is she delineates eclipses. So she gives it's a whole deep dive into this, but the eclipse cycles are all according to, it's called the Saros series. So it's a very deep subject, so I'm not going to get fully into this, but at the back of the book, in the appendix, she has a listing of all these, the eclipses are all grouped according to the cycles, and it has to do with as they move up and down from North Pole to South Pole. And what most people don't realize is that not only do eclipses belong to, or families of eclipses, it's like having tribes or clans, but they also have a unique energy imprint, and they last for thousands of years. Like the eclipse cycle, this one coming up on Saturday, that cycle is it's an eclipse cycle that started in the year 850 AD. You know, it's like thousands, and then it won't end for another like 70 years. So this is what we would call a waning eclipse cycle. And then a new cycle starts, you know, so it's this beautiful rhythm, the cycles of time that happen over thousands of years. So it's just, to me, fascinating. This says here, this is what Bernadette says, this family of eclipses, so this is the solar eclipse, is concerned with the individual's relationship to father figures, authority figures, or the need to take responsibility and control. This is a time to accept, talk about Prince Charles here, this is a time to accept the commitments that are presented, commitments which would occur due to another person's illness or another person's unreliability. There you
Nailed
go.
it. Nailed it.
Yeah.
But the other thing with eclipses is that, as with history, it's not linear. It's in spirals or ellipses. They go round and round and round and round and
Right.
out into the wide blue yonder.
Out into the wide blue yonder. Or as I like to say that, I heard this from somebody, you know, history doesn't repeat itself, but it damn well rhymes. You know, so we could say that of, I know the one that brought COVID was about, there is a sense of traumatic transformation and loss, and that Mercury was a very key player in that sorrow cycle of eclipses. And you think about Mercury, the lungs, the respiratory, you know, the air, you know, reaching the masses, and, you know, there's COVID was, that's when exactly when it happened. So yeah, we definitely pay attention to that. Yeah, so there's that eclipse. And then maybe we could, let's pull up, oh, sorry, I have to put you back on share screen. So let me get that here. And let's look at do you want to look at the solar eclipse, or what would you like? I mean, sorry, the lunar?
The lunar, I think, is quite interesting, because although, as it were, in the UK, neither of these eclipses are going to be, well, in fact, the lunar eclipse is visible just in the UK. It's just visible across Europe, because in the older writings, I think as we may have said, unless an eclipse was visible, it wasn't deemed to be such an event. I mean, they knew their eclipse cycles, but a visible eclipse,
they couldn't see it in their own homeland.
Yeah,
right.
if you could see an eclipse, it's literally, an eclipse is shutting the light out of the sun or the moon, and so if the light was dimmed in the heavens, it meant it was dimmed over that part of the earth where the eclipse could be seen. So it was more potent. And this eclipse, this lunar eclipse, can just be seen in the UK. And of course, immediately what strikes us is the queen, the moon, who is queen of the night, is right on the queen's MC degree, which is it's the part that everybody sees. It's the top of the sails coming over the horizon.
Right. And there it is, descendant exactly on the 25 degrees. Almost, look, it's within 9 minutes of that. I mean, my goodness, there it is, folks.
So that's really, I mean, that you see that and you just go like, wow. And then the fact, obviously, that the sun, the light of life, is down below, and it's in the house of her children. We've got all these planets in the house of her children, both with the solar eclipse, because the fifth sign or house is related to children, to childbirth, to creativity, and to ambassadors, which is another title attributed to the fifth house.
Ambassadors, I didn't know that.
Yeah, ambassadors and legates. So as well as gambling and all the fun things that we like to indulge in.
Right, for better or worse, gambling, risk taking. Yeah.
Yeah. So
pleasurable pursuits.
very pleasurable pursuits. And then as astrologers, when sort of once people get into astrology, you see the eclipse and then you look at the planets involved that are said to rule or disposit the sign. So we look at Mars and we look at Venus because the sun is in Taurus, ruled by Venus. And although moderns would take it Pluto for Scorpio, I take it, traditionally takes it as Mars. And Mars and Venus have got what's known as a mixed reception. So they're working together, but they can't see one another because they're in the next door signs.
Right, the blind spot.
And yeah, there's a blind spot. So Venus is in Aries, so she's hot, feisty, passionate, get out there and get dancing. Whereas Mars is in Pisces, so it's a little bit cooler, a little bit more, let's see how the tide flows, let's see what happens. And so he's not so gung-ho to get out there and shake the world up. So it's it does look an interesting eclipse. And then when we put that eclipse with Prince Charles's chart, we have a very similar picture.
Right, let's see what we got here. Let me bring up Prince Charles's chart. Just give me a moment here. Charles, where are you, Charles? There you are. No, Prince of Wales. Here we go.
Prince of Wales, yeah.
And the eclipse is, oops, all right, different clock now, and the eclipse. There it is.
So we can see with the solar eclipse, it's very close to his moon and obviously Her Majesty's sun, because they have a sun-moon conjunction, she and Prince Charles.
And it's happening in his angular 10th house, which is a very important, the public image.
And if we think that the sun traditionally stands for the king, and the moon traditionally stands for the queen. So here we've got a king and queen, although we have a king in waiting and we have a remarkable queen who is fixed, because Taurus is what's known as a fixed earth sign. They don't go anywhere in a hurry unless it's after cake, in which case they can move quite quickly.
Venus rules unless it's after cake.
And the one, again, the positive with this is the fact that Venus, who, as we said earlier, is the ruler of Taurus, she is sitting in the lap of Jupiter, the king of the gods.
Yeah, within 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Yeah. Look at that. 27 degrees, late Pisces, the gods, right? And the royal, entitled, privileged life. And in the 8th house here for Prince Charles's 8th house, which is 8th house. Tell us what the 8th house is. For those of you who are new to astrology.
The 8th house, we'll start off with the nice side, can be the assets of partners or those you're in business with. So it can show how good their money is. It's also known as the house of mortality, and it's a house of fear and trepidation. So in mundane astrology, which is looking at global events, the 8th house signifies the mortality rate. So that's what I'll say about the 8th house.
Mundane, it's the mortality rate of a country.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. As well as the assets of partners, those we're in partnership with. So, I mean, that's quite a pleasant Jupiter and Venus, and Jupiter rules the 8th because in traditional astrology, he is the owner of Pisces. So in modern astrology, they have Neptune. Oh, and Neptune is there
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't look at these, so
right, I know. I was like,
it's a bit of it's a bit
uh-oh.
of a surprise to me to see that Neptune's right there on the descendant
Mhm.
of the eclipse in his 8th house. And of course, the
Dissolution.
descendant was the descendant into the underworld.
Yeah. And it is,
So
it's just a few minutes into the underworld. We've
yeah,
just passed.
and of course his sun has a trine, a separating trine to that. So a trine is when planets are in the same element. So Prince Charles's sun is in the water element. So anything in Pisces will also reflect back to his sun, and anything in Cancer will reflect back to his sun.
Pretty amazing.
It is amazing. And
It tells a
see, it really does. It does tell a whole story. And when you look at, yeah, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, you know, and then there's always the, you know, I think about Venus and glamour and such, and beauty and glamour. And so the shadow side of this, there, you know, with, unfortunately, you know, when you think about being illusion or delusional, or, you know, Venus and Jupiter together in Pisces, you know, and then I know that you don't see Neptune, but you know, I have my settings there and I forgot to change them back for your conversation. So mesopologie.
I forgive you. I forgive you, because certainly here in the UK, I'm in a minority, if there can be such a thing, with traditional astrology.
Don't tell Benjamin Dykes that you did. I won't say anything if you don't say anything.
No, I won't. I won't, because I adore Ben.
Benjamin.
I really do. Yeah. But you see, the other thing with this is that Prince William's chart, his Venus is at 25 Taurus. So
it is conjunct Algol, pretty close to Algol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're getting a whole theme with him, and I'm not sure about Prince George. Prince George.
Little Prince. Yeah. I mean, it does. I'm wondering about like Lady Diana's chart, because you know that resonated when she, you know, when Harry got engaged to Meghan. She, you know, her 5th house. You know, the eclipses were in her 5th house. So yeah, it's really mind-blowing to see how our lives are spelled out across all of our loved ones' charts. And it's just a constant, incredible, as Achuta said, it's this stunning reflection, and this the interplay of all of these parts, and how they all, this, you know, I would say divine intelligence
it's the divine dance of the planets across a family's DNA. I mean, so often, you know, when if you've got family trees and you've got sort of fairly good birth times going back, invariably you will find there is a thread running all the way through. And we certainly see it, because we know with the royal family, their birth times are hopefully accurately recorded.
Oh yeah.
And we see this whole Taurian emphasis all the way through with our Queen, with Prince Charles, or Taurus Scorpio axis, I should more correctly say. And George has got Saturn in Scorpio, and his descendant is 27 Taurus.
There it is.
So that's Prince George of Cambridge.
Right. And the lunar eclipse was at 27 Taurus. So his home life was getting changed with all this. I just felt to look at the Saros for the lunar eclipse.
Yeah.
And I find that, oh, here's solar. I scribbled in these pages. Oh, you know, are these only solars in the back of this book? I guess, no, I don't have it handy, but the Saros cycle for that, I'd have to look it up, but just curious. Did I pull up this? Yeah, I did pull up the solar eclipse.
Yeah.
For, let's see, screen. Whoopsie. Oh, Wait, hold on a second. Okay, I've got here's Prince William's chart. And then the eclipse. This is this Saturday's eclipse on his chart. So as we can see, it's happening in his sixth. These eclipses are his 6th and 12th houses, which are considered difficult. I don't like to say bad houses, but they're the 2 most difficult houses in traditional astrology, the 6th and the 12th. Can you talk a little bit about that, Sharon?
Well, these are the houses that are out of sight of the ascendant. So they are a different element when you're using whole house signs.
Right.
And they're a different element to the sign on the ascendant. So straight away, we've got sort of a disconnect between the male and female energies. I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And the 12th house is the house of secrets and spies. And in many textbooks, it's also referred to as the house of self-undoing. And it's because you can't really see what's going on. They're in the dark, those 2 houses. And the 6th house is the house of servitude. I mean, I know that's not a popular term, but the fact is, majority of us are in servitude to someone because we have to earn a salary. We have to keep a roof over our heads. So we serve somebody with our services somehow. So that's the 6th house, but it's also the house of dis-ease. So people say it's the house of ill health. It's not really ill health as such. It's more when the body is out of tune, which is a dis-ease. And actually the word dis-ease comes from Astarte, from the stars. So yeah, and again, because you haven't got a direct line of sight to the ascendant, any planets placed in the 6th or the 12th house, they can do their own thing. They can party all night long. And the person who rules the 1st house is saying, well, come on, where are you? You know, you should be in bed by now. And they're saying, going to party. And then they get a headache and a hangover the next day if they drink.
Right.
And that's why the 6th house and the 12th house is the house of self-undoing and dis-ease.
So here's, for those of you who are just, talking about aversion and the blind spot. So here's the 1st house. It's just like driving the boat. And then the fact that these houses, this axis here cannot be seen. It's kind of like when you're driving your car and you've got that blind spot. You know something's there, but you can't see it. It's not like the car behind you, the car ahead, the car to the side, you can see, but then there's that little and that's where this is happening for Prince William. So what might that look like in terms of this, the changeover, the changing of the guard? It doesn't look like it would be an easy ride for him.
No, I don't think it will be, because their grandmother has been such a vital force in the princes' lives since they lost their mother. I think there's absolutely no doubt about the deep love both Prince William and Harry have for the Queen, and that she has for them.
And of course, the mother.
Yeah, that's pointless going into, that's a waste of time. But the fact of the matter is that Venus and Jupiter, the 2 benefics, as they're known, so they're the planets of good fortune, are both out of sight. Right. So it's difficult for him to manage. I mean, as soon as Prince William was born, he was born into the role of being king. So the MC and Jupiter in the 12th house, he's born into an institution. So the 12th house is also the area of the chart that relates to institutions, whether it's banks, whether it's monasteries, or whether it's a family institution. So his destiny is shown quite clearly that he's born into an institution and his fate is sealed in that institution.
he was he was born on a waning eclipse cycle, according
Yeah.
to Bernadette
Mm.
Brady. So, what do you suppose about that?
Well, both he and
Harry,
Kate.
or Kate. Oh, and Kate, right?
Yeah.
They're the same age. Yeah, not Harry,
They're-
but Kate. Yeah,
But Kate, I think she's also
Capricorn.
yeah, on the not on the eclipse cycle that he was born into. Hang on, well, where's the nodes? Where's the nodes in his chart? Cancer, yeah, so she too was born on the eclipse cycle because she's Capricorn.
Yeah, yeah, same eclipse cycle.
Yeah.
Capricorn, Cancer, and she
Yes.
is a Capricorn. They have their suns are in opposite signs.
Yeah.
So yeah, fascinating. Well, in terms of like the rest of the year, like how do you see this? Obviously, it's very clear that this change is upon us with the royal family power structure, and like how does that? What do you feel that represents for the collective? Whether you're a resident of the UK or just the fact that they have this has been such this long-lasting, like you said, Taurus Scorpio, this fixed, long-lasting institution, and that now that these eclipses are doing their thing, what do you see for the collective?
Well, when we look at the eclipse cycles, we have to look back at what's gone before, but also with eclipses, the effects of an eclipse last as many years as there's totality, but the period of the effects of the eclipse will only start after a certain time frame. So we go back to the fact that for an eclipse to be considered important, it would have to be visible. So if an eclipse, so the eclipse would fall in between the 12th to the 7th houses, so in the upper hemisphere. So if the eclipse fell in houses 12 to 11 to 10, then that eclipse, the effects would be felt a month or a couple of months or 3 months after the eclipse happened. If the eclipse is sort of the 11th, 10th, 9th bracket, it's going to be 4 to 6 or 7 months. And then if it's from the 9th to the 7th, it could be almost a year later that the effects of that particular eclipse cycle will be felt.
Activating. Yeah.
With a lunar eclipse, it's a matter of months as opposed to years.
Right.
And so it's the lunar eclipse that is the most potent for the UK, that connects directly with all members of the royal family. And using this technique called Zodiacal Releasing, Princess Anne, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, Prince Charles, Prince William, and Prince George, they all have a fixed sign in the Zodiacal Releasing between the 16th to the 20th, 21st of June, which is when we enter the Cancer ingress. And this is likely to be when the effects of the lunar eclipse will start to show. So I think we'll have a nice run up to the Cancer ingress. And the Cancer ingress looks quite nice in itself, but it's when we get to the Libra ingress. But we won't sully today's chat with looking at the Libra ingress, because it's we won't go there. But so I think events,
maybe for another time.
Another time, yeah. So events for the UK, we know we've got the Platinum Jubilee celebrations coming up. I think it's the 1st and 2nd of June, or 2nd to the 4th of June.
Right. 75th anniversary.
Yeah. So I think then that we will have a nice time as a country. And I think that will generate some good feeling to get people through. Because when you're looking at the likelihood of events for the year for each country, you look at something called the Aries ingress. So that's when the sun hits 0 degrees Aries round about the 20th, 21st of March. And you look at that chart, and that gives you the indications, for the whole year, then for the half year, then for the quarters. And then you put each sun, you do your sun sign astrology, the sun goes into each sign, each solar ingress. And that's how you work out what's going to be a good month, what's going to be a bad month. Well, we know looking at the Aries ingress for the UK is different for America. We have 2 degrees Virgo rising. So the portents, the moon is at 29 Libra. So she's on the very last degree, just about to fall into Scorpio. So we know that the portents for the people's assets are going to be very poor, but yeah, that's global. That's, again, we come back to common sense, and we don't need the astrology to tell us, but it's when the astrology shows us what's going on, there's no getting away from it. So yeah, and undoubtedly, because the Queen is an important figurehead globally, when she hangs up her crown, for whatever reason, whether it's that Prince Charles becomes regent in June, or she hangs up her crown for good, it's going to have a global impact, because she really is a remarkable woman, and we will never ever see anybody with that dedication, that steadfast loyalty to her position and to her country and to the people of the world. We'll never have that again. I mean, Prince Charles was ahead of his time. He was into global warming. He was talking to the trees. We now know that trees talk to each other. So
trees do talk to each other.
Yeah, it's, yeah, Prince Charles was ahead of his time. He was derided and laughed at and lampooned, but actually his heart for the earth was always in the right place. His heart for ecology and conservation, which was from his father, was conservation and preservation of the wildlife of our world.
He has a lot. Yeah, he has definitely done a lot with the environmental. Yeah, and then you think about Venus and Scorpio, the eclipses in Taurus and Scorpio, and you think about the environment and the earth. I mean, I know we're just kind of veering away from. I'm just moving to look at the elements. You know, you've got water, you've got earth and water. Now that you say that about Venus and Scorpio and the environment, you know, I know that's another, aside from the royal family, you know, and that big change, you know, coming. I see this too with the resources of our planet. You know, our planet is so fragile. We've seen these horrific wildfires and things, and fire season, and the global warming, and all of that, and taking its toll. And I feel like these eclipses are, you know, Mother Nature is saying, hey, you know what? You've got to wake up. We can't go on like this, you know, self-gratification. If you think about Venus, like the hedonistic pursuit, you know, for one's pleasure, it's like, you know, is wrecking the environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it is all change globally for everyone.
Yeah.
And again, something that isn't often spoken about, but is astrologically related, is the sun cycle and the cycle of sunspots.
Sunspots,
and the sun's been behaving erratically. Now, we don't influence the sun influences us, but it's the solar flares we've had have been unprecedented in the number and the ferocity directed towards Earth at this time. And just sort of going back a bit, when they set up the stock exchanges, it was predicated on the sunspot cycle, which is 11/22 years, because during that 11 years, it then flips and does something else,
I
which
didn't know that. Wow. The
which
stock market was set up according to
well, it was the wheat prices. It was wheat
Wheat,
and
right.
pork bellies were the
Right.
main commodities, and it was noticed that every 11 years there would be an increase and then there would be a fall. And so you can either correlate it with the Jupiter cycle of 11.88 years.
Right. It's the Jupiter cycle.
And now we've got, well, from Galileo to see the sunspots and actually plot these sunspots going across the sun that we can see on our side, and then they disappear. So the sun's being very naughty for the last 22 years.
Very
Not been-
naughty. I love you UK astrologers calling the sun naughty. It's been naughty. Well, what's going to happen with the solar eclipse? And oh my goodness. Yeah. Taurus and Scorpio, naughty, a change, and maybe the naughtiness is racked up 10 notches, or maybe it's us that's being naughty. I think it has been. It's just been this profligate use of resources and this rapacious demand. And I think too of it, Venus and being, consumer goods and consuming and consumption. And it's like, when does that ever stop? That where our whole economy is based upon consumption.
How can it stop? Because although globally we're theoretically going green actually means raping the earth for these very rare minerals, destroying loads of land to get rare minerals to power these lithium batteries and things.
It's like, yeah, there's a flip.
We've got to think of something else.
Yeah.
And whether or not we just go back to living in stick houses,
going off the grid, feels
going
good.
off grid, wearing sheepskin coats and trousers.
Trousers. What will happen to our bone china, right? Yeah.
We'll have to carry it in a little sack on our back carefully.
Right. Our little, right. And I think too about the food supply, these eclipses could certainly be, I think they're definitely speaking to that too, with Venus ruling it's about food and.
Well, it is, and even
money,
even without that ghastly situation going on in Europe, that's the breadbasket.
Ukraine,
there's going to be a lot of food poverty. I go, this is talking about me, which is not the purpose of our chat, but I go on a foraging walk every Tuesday with a group of people, and we go and we find where the weeds are growing in profusion. So they're called weeds, but they're flowers just in the wrong place. And a lot of the weeds have so many good properties in them. And so we're going out and marking sort of in our own local area where we can find natural food, because once we can't get the avocados in our supermarkets, we've got to find something else.
Foraging, yeah, that's become such a big thing now. And I think too, these eclipse cycles are showing us, look into other resources, be flexible, let go of that rigidity of that things have to be a certain, certainly our comfort zone getting upended, and having to be resourceful.
Well, this is why I think this first eclipse, this solar eclipse with Venus sitting with Jupiter, is actually going to be beneficial in some way that we won't see immediately. We'll see it further down the line. This eclipse is only visible in Antarctica and the far tip of South America. Right. So maybe South America, Antarctica will provide us with consumer goods, food, who knows? We'll have to look elsewhere to gratify our senses.
Yeah. And maybe how we gratify ourselves has to radically change too. Maybe we need to get away from comfort food. Maybe our comfort's going to be in another, place. That's what comes to me, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to have to find my comfort in dandelion leaves and no longer in chocolate, because chocolate will become such a rare commodity. And that's my go-to drug is chocolate.
I love chocolate. Yeah. Oh, from chocolate, dandelion. Woo! You know, welcome to the eclipses, right? Look at this comfort food. Eating greens, bitter greens. Whoa.
Well, it's good for the liver.
Yes.
Dandelion.
Yes, healthy. Yes. We have to look to health. Dandelion, very good
Yes.
for the liver, cleansing the liver.
Yeah.
Hey. Anyway, so yeah, thank you so much. This has been a fun talk, and I'm so grateful for your time.
Well, I'm absolutely delighted to chat with you. It's great fun, and to chat with somebody who understands traditional astrology as well, because you've got a very, very good, or you had a very, very good tutor. I know quite a few of his students, and I have to say, yeah, I'm delighted that he's turning out such good, conscientious, lovely, lovely students.
Oh,
I mean, it's not to say other schools aren't,
right.
but from a traditional perspective, it's gratifying to see that in England there's quite a few going through his school. So I'm delighted about that on a selfish level.
You're right. Yeah, I think it's the next big thing. It's huge to rediscover traditional, and it's just going to get more and more. You know, it was like we all have to go back to those roots. Those roots are outrageous. So yeah, and I'm so grateful to a tutor, because I feel like I got a world-class education.
Yes, yes.
In traditional astrology and Hellenistic. Yeah, is like, and yeah. So and it's the gift that keeps on giving. So I'm sorry, what?
I said it does. Yes, it does keep giving.
Yeah, the new generation arriving, and with going back to those roots and bringing that forward feels really good.
The only thing I'm disappointed about is the lack of the younger people studying with accredited schools. There's so many, it seems, that they're going on the internet and studying, but they're not doing it in the depth that you've done it, that I've done it.
Well, I think it's changing now. I think more people, to me, it's almost like with yoga, the way yoga was very fringe in the 60s, only hippies did yoga, and 70s. And then the 80s, it started getting more traction. And nowadays it's like everybody not everybody, but the whole notion of schools, everybody started offering all these certification programs, and so it got a lot more grounded in an actual study and organized disciplines study with certification. And I think that that's kind of where we're going with astrology.
Hopefully. I mean, the Association of Professional Astrologers International, I think we've got 19 or 23 schools registered with us now. Well, going back to when it was set up 35 years ago, I think, there was only 3 schools.
Yeah. You see.
So there is the desire to train people, but it's getting the young people to recognize that actually going to a professional astrologer, an astrologer with many years and a proven work under their belt, is going to be so beneficial. As one of my friends, he wrote drew a terrific meme of someone going to a dentist, like in the old days, you just yank out your tooth. And he said, would you go to somebody who just sets them up as selves up as a dentist, or would you go to a qualified dentist? Well, you don't want the pain, you want to go to the qualified dentist.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully there'll be more awareness of astrology to come out from being a fringe to being like the yoga, or even vegetarianism. That was a fringe thing. And now we've got vegetarian restaurants, thank goodness, here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Even in France.
Even in France, yes. Tori in France.
Yeah.
Hi. All right. Well, so just to reiterate, so where people can find you is the website for the traditional.
It's astrologersharon.co.uk. And that's my email is astrologersharon@aol.com.
Astrologersharon@aol.com. Okay.
Yeah, I think, yes, just Astrologer Sharon. That hopefully that finds me.
They can,
or look on the APAI website, Association of Professional Astrologers website.
Right, www.professionalastrologers.co.uk. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Sharon. It's been great. And we could, perhaps in the future, talk more about, as this unfolds, it'll be interesting to see, how when and how these changes unroll and watching them. And yeah. All right. Well, everybody, and I wish you an outrageous eclipse season with all good things, new beginnings.
Likewise.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, that has been episode 160 of StarSound Speaks. And thank you all for listening. Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Astrology, StarSound Speaks. We'll see you all next time. Thanks again. Bye for now.
Bye.